The drama kicks off with a convoy of cars arriving, and in one of them sits our female lead, Michu, who is heartbroken because her boyfriend, Tang, has died. Michu is saying to Tang that he had promised to marry her as soon as he returned from the US in 3 days. That's why she had been eagerly waiting for him to come back. Today was the day she was supposed to become his bride, but before becoming a bride, she had already become his widow. Tang lies inside the coffin and Michu starts crying while kissing it, remembering him, because she truly loved Tang deeply. Everyone has left the graveyard except Michu, who simply doesn't feel like leaving Tang behind. Just then, something shocking happens. Tang is standing right behind her. Seeing this, she is utterly shocked, wondering how on earth he could be there. Tang suddenly starts kissing her Michu can't understand what's going on and ends up fainting. When she opens her eyes, she realizes she's in a room and it feels as though she really felt Tang. Just then, her friend Harry enters. He starts expressing concern, asking her why she was screaming and if she had a bad dream. Michu then asks him why she is at his house. Actually, she had fainted at yesterday's event, so he brought her there. Hearing this, Michu begins to remember the previous day and wonders how it's possible she didn't actually see Tang for real. Harry gently explains that dead people don't come back and says he understands her condition, so he booked an international trip for her to help her recover. Michu gives no reply, and 6 months later, Michu has returned from the trip but is still troubled because she hasn't been able to forget Tang. Then she again saw Tang and she hugged him tightly. Then, while lying on his lap, she hears a voice ask, "What are you doing?" She looks up and is utterly shocked because he was speaking too. She thinks this can't be happening, that it must be just her imagination. The man is about to introduce himself, but Michu silences him and starts checking her phone. There, she reads that repeatedly seeing a dead person means you've gone mad, which explains why she's seeing him everywhere. She even begins touching this man, thinking he is Tang. When he tries to walk away, Michu stops him, climbs on top of him, hugs him, and says she just can't forget him. She tells him he has no idea how difficult every moment has been without him. Then, Michu's stepmother walks in and asks Michu what on earth she's doing. Michu is shocked and asks if she can also see Tang. The man pushes Michu away, and the stepmother explains that this is her cousin, Lu Yi, who is technically Michu's uncle. Michu looks at him in disbelief, thinking he looks exactly like Tang. If this is a prank show, she's ready to sue. So she returns to her room and starts wondering what's going on. How can two people look exactly the same? It makes no sense. Just then, she hears a show on TV mentioning that a major shock can lead to memory loss. That's when Michu starts thinking, this must be Tang, who has lost his memory. I'll prove it. So she begins test round 1. She checks Lu Yi's underwear, because Tang used to wear fluorescent underwear. If this man isn't Lu Yi, but Tang, then her suspicion is right, and sure enough, all of his underwear is fluorescent. She moves on to round 2. She wears the same veil she wore when proposing to Tang and runs toward Lu Yi saying, "Tang, please marry me." But just as she's about to fall, Lu Yi catches her. The way he hugs her feels just like Tang, so she asks if he's really Tang, but Lu Yi just shrugs her off. Still, Michu doesn't give up and begins round 3. This time, she offers Lu Yi milk because Tang was allergic to milk. When he reacts strangely after drinking it, she hugs him again and says she knew he was Tang. But Lu Yi is completely fine and starts asking what her problem is. Now she's preparing for the final round. She finds one of Tang's old hairs and says she'll do a DNA test. Then she sneaks in to get a strand of Lu Yi's hair, but he catches her and won't let her near him. Michu insists she just wants to help and asks if she can give him a head massage. Lu Yi refuses, but Michu keeps insisting until he agrees. Of course, subtlety is not Michu's strong suit. She slips, spills all the oil on his head, and turns him into a walking coconut. Lu Yi gets furious. As he comes out of the shower, Michu comes to him again, saying she'll dry his hair. But in her rush, she slips again, this time pulling off his towel too. Both of them are left highly embarrassed. Suddenly, Michu's stepmother Rose arrives and is also shocked by the scene. Michu quickly tries to explain that it was just an accident. Later that night, Lu Yi is talking to someone on the phone. Then, very cleverly, he picks someone's phone from their pocket and leaves, changing his appearance so that no one can recognize him. Then, sitting in a car, he declares that he will destroy the Hua Group. The Hua Group, which is Michu's father's company. After that, he told Rose everything, and he checked the chat history of her husband's manager, and the Diamond Project file is not in the office, but in her husband's study room, and she has to bring the key. Rose agrees, and she has stolen the key and given it to Lu Yi, but Lu Yi says he can't go to the study room now because her husband is home. So Rose says it's fine, he'll go out with her tomorrow. Lu Yi agrees, but just then, the lights turn on, and it seems like Mishu overheard everything. But she was just there to pick up some bread, and the key was behind them, which Mishu was about to see. So before that could happen, Lu Yi stopped her and grabbed her hands, standing very close to her. Lu Yi tells Rose to leave, saying he needs to talk to Mishu alone. Mishu starts asking, "What are you doing?" Then Lu Yi says he's recognized her. She's the same crazy girl who started forcefully kissing him 6 months ago when he went to his friend's grave. Mishu is shocked and says, "Was that person really you? I thought all that was just my imagination." Then she says, "Maybe it was you who kissed me, not me kissing you." But then she starts feeling embarrassed, wondering how she could kiss a strange uncle. That's when she leaves, and Lu Yi is relieved that Michu didn't see the key. The next day, Michu goes to meet Harry, who has brought a cake for her birthday. They both go outside, and Mishu sees a shooting star and gets excited, but Harry jokes that it must be Tang watching her from afar. Hearing this, Mishu starts feeling sad, missing Tang. Then Harry gives her a birthday present, but the words on it were different, not Mishu's name. Mishu doesn't notice much and accepts it, thinking it's a new design, but at home, Lu Yi is worried, wondering why Mishu isn't back yet, as it's so late. Then, when Mishu finally arrives, he asks her where she had been all this time and if she even knows what time it is. Mishu tells him she was with a friend and tells him not to bother. Lu Yi asks which friend and says that since her parents are not home, it's his responsibility to look after her. In the conversation, Mishu reveals it's her birthday today and asks him to leave her alone, but Lu Yi needs to get her drunk to steal the file from the study room. So he tells her he has a really good wine from the US that she'll definitely like, asks if she'd like to try it. Mishu agrees, and now the two are drinking. Mishu says she doesn't get drunk easily, but Mishu is completely drunk in a few glasses, and she was talking to Lu Yi, thinking he's Tang. She says he has no idea how much she missed him. As she gets closer to Lu Yi, he tries to stop her, and in an attempt, Mishu's locket falls. She picks it up and blows on it, saying, "My honey love, hope you didn't get hurt." Actually, Tang gifted Mishu this locket and named it Honey Love, the name of his new jewelry business, for which he designed this piece especially for her. Remembering all this, Mishu starts missing Tang even more and gets closer to Lu Yi, asking to see his neck, chest, and muscles, if they're still the same. She says she wants to feel him. Lu Yi tries hard to stop her, but she doesn't listen and comes even closer and then passes out. Now, after laying Mishu in her room, Lu Yi successfully steals the Diamond Project file from the study room, but as he's leaving, he finds Mishu standing in front of him, asking what he's taking from her father's study and what he's hiding behind his back. Lu Yi is shocked, not knowing what to do. Since Mishu is still drunk, he takes advantage of her weakness and says, "I'm Tong. I lied to you that I'm Lu Yi. I'm actually your Tong." Mishu is shocked to hear this and starts coming close to Lu Yi, saying she knew he was her Tong all along and asks why he left her, telling him how much she missed him. Then, Mishu starts forcefully kissing Lu Yi. Meanwhile, Lu Yi hides the file successfully, but now Mishu is getting even more close and attracting Lu Yi, so he can't stop himself from kissing her back. They kiss and make it to the room, where their romance continues for a while. During this, Lu Yi reminds himself that, because of her father, he doesn't want to like her, but he can't control himself. And just when they're in the middle of the romance, Mishu passes out due to being too drunk. The next day, they are sleeping very close to each other. Mishu is initially happy, thinking he's Tang, so she kisses him too. But when she comes to her senses, she pushes Lu Yi away, asking what he's doing in her room. Then he tells her the whole story, that she brought him here forcefully. Michu asked Lu Yi, "Nothing serious happened between us last night, right?" Hearing this, Lu Yi starts to show her all the love bites she gave him. Mishu is suddenly reminded of Tang because he used to show his neck in the same way. Later, she received a call informing her that the DNA report had arrived and was being sent to her online. Apparently, she had secretly taken Lu Yi's hair and sent it for a DNA test. That call made her recall the day when, dressed as a bride, she had been eagerly waiting for Tang to return. But then, she had received a heartbreaking call stating that her would-be husband was involved in a crime and had been shot. The story then returned to the present, where Michu was visibly nervous about what the DNA report might reveal. She was wondering if Lo Yi could actually be Tang. But when she finally read them, they turned out to be negative. Lu Yi and Tang were not the same person. This realization had shattered Michu's heart, because she had hoped Lu Yi was Tang. Feeling heartbroken, she had ended up drinking heavily that night. She started missing Tang so much and drank heavily, and when she ran out of her own meat, she noticed the guy sitting behind her was eating the same kind. So without hesitation, she went over and started eating from his skewers. This unexpected moment had led to a kiss between them. Unadonis Chuff. The person was none other than Lu Yi himself, who had been keeping an eye on Michu because of his mission. After saving Michu from roadside goons, Lu Yi came back and was drinking water when he was interrupted by Rose, who had seemed suddenly attracted to him. She had brought up work matters, particularly what their next step should be in destroying the Hua group. As she left, she had taken his glass and kissed the exact spot where his lips had touched, clearly smitten with her cousin. The following day, Michu had been getting ready with renewed confidence, thinking to herself that now the confusion between Tang and Lu Yi was over. She decided to focus on her business, Honeylove Jewelry, which she and Tang had started together. Since Tang was no longer around, she declared herself the sole owner and promised to make the brand successful again. As she left, she'd said that although Tang was no longer by her side, he would always remain in her heart. Outside, Lu Yi had been standing and got completely stunned when he saw Michu walk by. Internally, he wondered how a girl could dress up so flawlessly. She looked truly beautiful. They had exchanged greetings, and Michu informed him that she was heading to work. The scene had then shifted to Michu's father Han, who was with his wife, Rose. He had appeared disturbed, and when asked why, he revealed that despite working so hard on the diamond project, it had been awarded to an American company without effort. Rose had seemed pleased, realizing that Lu Yi had done his job. But then she had spotted the property papers and concluded that Han was planning to divide his assets. She shared this with Lu Yi and expressed her desire to find out who Han would name in his will. Originally, he had planned to leave everything to his elder daughter, who had passed away, and now, since Michu had entered the family, she suspected it would all go to her. Rose had fumed that Han didn't value her despite being his wife. Lu Yi assured her that he would find out everything, on the condition that she helped him get to Michu's office. Meanwhile, Lu Yi had snuck into Michu's cabin and started searching. He had come across Tang's photo. He tried to open her locker but failed since it required her fingerprint. Just then, Michu had been on her way in and noticed someone sitting on the chair. Someone who looked exactly like Tang. She had frozen and become emotional, lost in her memories, even though she knew it was Lu Yi. She questioned herself for constantly confusing him with Tang. When she asked him why he was there, he cheekily responded that she probably thought he looked like Tang, but he doubted Tang was this stylish. Maybe Tang had been more of a vintage guy. Lu Yi came closer. He'd ask why she had kissed him that day, if she didn't feel anything. Michu explained that she had been drunk and only wanted her favorite meat, which led to the situation. She apologized. Lu Yi accused her of lying, saying that he could tell she felt something when he was close, and that's why she always blushed. Michu internally denied it, insisting he could never replace Tang. Lu Yi replied that she should stick to that belief, then left. After he was gone, Michu realized that indeed, whenever he came close, she started blushing, and she didn't know why. Meanwhile, Lu Yi, who had gotten close to Michu just to retrieve her fingerprint, had done so successfully and left happily. Later that night, Lu Yi returned to Michu's cabin and found the property files. The next day, he met Rose and informed her that she had been right. Han was planning to leave everything to his daughter Michu. Hearing this, Rose had become furious, complaining that after caring for that old man day and night, he had still left her with nothing. She then made up her mind to teach him a lesson. By the way, she also told Louis that she had rented him an apartment, as staying at Han's house wasn't ideal anymore. Louis had agreed. The scene then shifted to Rose at the hospital. Apparently, Han had suffered a heart attack, something that was, quite obviously, orchestrated by Rose herself. She had apparently fed him strange, questionable things, and when Michu arrived, she had started putting on an act, pretending to be clueless about what had happened to her father. Right then, Rose started faking a dizzy spell. Michu told her not to worry and to go home and rest, assuring her that she would stay and take care of her dad. So, with a wicked smile, Rose had peacefully strolled out of the hospital. Meanwhile, Michu was thinking about how Tang had already walked out of her life, and now her father's condition was critical. On top of that, her business was going downhill like a slippery slope in monsoon. She had been wondering how she would manage everything on her own. Meanwhile, Lu Yi had returned to his apartment only to be absolutely shocked at finding Rose inside. He asked her how on earth she had gotten in and whether she knew the password. Rose replied that she just wanted to surprise him. She added with a sparkle of wicked pride that she had good news. Soon, the Hua group would be theirs because she had fed Han some bizarre stuff and had successfully landed him in the hospital. His condition was serious, she said, and she was confident he wouldn't survive. Louis had stood there stunned, asking how she could do something like that and what she was doing at his place instead of being with her husband at the hospital. Otherwise, people would start to get suspicious. Rose had casually brushed that off, telling him to relax. No one would suspect a thing. After all, she bragged, he hadn't yet witnessed her acting skills. In fact, she proudly shared that Mishu herself had told her to go home and rest. Lu Yi had stared at her in disbelief, realizing just how dangerously cunning she really was. But then, he started worrying about Mishu, how much she must be struggling all alone in such a stressful situation. When he reached the hospital to check on her, he found her asleep on a bench, still working. Feeling even more sympathy for her, he had taken off his coat and gently draped it over her. Then, he had carefully helped her lie down more comfortably. Just then, Mishu's assistant had arrived, but Lu Yi had gestured for her to stay quiet so Mishu wouldn't wake up. The assistant softly shared that, while Mishu appeared delicate and fragile, no one truly knew how strong she was. Despite all the terrible things happening in her life, she didn't give up. Instead, she was doing her best to handle everything. First the stress of the declining business, and now potentially her father's business too, until he recovered. The assistant also pointed out that the saddest thing of all was that there was no one to look after Miss Michu. Hearing this, Lu Yi had felt even worse for her, and now that he was starting to develop feelings for her, he had silently vowed to protect Michu from now on. Even though she was the daughter of his enemy, Han, he still wanted to take care of her, because unlike her father, she wasn't evil. Mishu woke up to a message from Lu Yi, asking her to meet him outside. She went out, and since it was raining, Lu Yi had sneakily joined her under her umbrella and began showing her some plants. His actual goal, though, was to cheer her up, and to his delight, he had succeeded in making her smile. Mishu, feeling better, had thanked him. Lu Yi had grinned like a high schooler who just got a compliment from their crush. When Mishu returned to her father, she found out that he had regained consciousness. She was overjoyed. But when she told her stepmother, Rose, the good news, Rose's mood had instantly gone sour. She was so sure that Han would die, but now he had survived. Mishu went to her company, receiving shocking news that Honeylove's sales had suddenly spiked. She had no idea how this miracle had happened. Her assistant had explained that it was because Louis had liked one of their posts. Mishu had been confused. How could a single like lead to such drastic results? Luis wasn't just anyone. His social media account was extremely popular. Mishu had suggested that they collaborate with him to make Honeylove even more successful. But the assistant told her that he never did commercial collaborations and that no one had ever even seen what he looked like. Still, Mishu had declared that Louis now felt like the last hope for her Honeylove business, and she was determined to convince him to collaborate no matter what. And then the scene shifted to Louis Yi, who was getting bombarded with Mishu's collaboration emails. Because he himself was Louis. He had intentionally liked Honeylove's bracelet post to help her out. Seeing her emails, he smirked and thought, I knew you'd message me. Then, using a fake ID, he had started commenting that his uncle, who worked as a security guard, had seen Louis at a certain building. He had even dropped the building's address, knowing that Michu definitely would. And that's exactly what had happened. Michu arrived at the building, however, she hadn't been allowed inside due to tight security. Just then she spotted Lu Yi and called out to him, asking, Do you live here? Please take me inside with you. Lu Yi started teasing her, pretending not to recognize her and asking if they even knew each other. Mishu pleaded with him again. After making her beg a little, he finally agreed and took her in. Mishu had been thrilled and started looking around the place, realizing that there were a lot of apartments. She wondered how she'd ever find Louis now. Then, she asked Lu Yi how many rooms were in his apartment. Michu said she was thinking of staying at his place for a few days, until she found Louis. Louis had started refusing, saying that he had never even seen Louis himself and didn't know if he really lived there. But Michu had insisted, saying she had seen the social media post and was sure he stayed there. After some playful acting, Lu Yi had finally agreed, while silently feeling overjoyed that Mishu would now be staying with him. She seemed to really like the place and began complimenting everything enthusiastically. At that point, Lu Yi told her to do whatever she wanted, as long as she didn't mess anything up, because he couldn't stand a mess. Michu had then asked if he meant she had to follow his rules for everything, if he would even dictate the tiniest details of her life. To that, Lu Yi had pulled her close and declared that yes, she would do exactly what he said. In fact, if he had his way, he'd even choose her outfits. Fashion police meets dictator. Mishu, shocked by this statement, started pushing him away, accusing him of trying to scare her into leaving. But she made it clear she wasn't someone who ran from fear. She said she'd only leave after finding Louis. Right at that moment, someone knocked at the door. It turned out to be Rose, who was surprised to see Mishu in Louis's apartment. She demanded to know what Mishu was doing there. Once Mishu was gone, Rose interrogated Lu Yi about revealing his address. Apparently, she was also aware that Lu Yi was actually Louis. Lu Yi explained that he wanted to work with Mishu to gradually gain access to the Hua group. He'd added that in order to defeat an enemy, one must first understand them, hence his decision to let Michu stay. Rose found his plan a bit odd but agreed with it after hearing his reasoning. The scene then cuts to Mishu, who is outside, unsure of how to begin her search for Louis. Her grand plan was to dig through trash cans. Louis, understandably horrified, ran over and asked why she was doing that. Michu explained that since Louis was a foreigner, he'd obviously use foreign products, so if she found foreign trash, she'd know where he lived. Lu Yi called her stupid and said she lacked basic common sense. But Michu was unfazed, clearly committed to this dumpster detective strategy. Out of frustration, Lu Yi had picked her up and carried her away while she shouted for him to let her go. Meanwhile, someone was secretly taking pictures of them. Back at the apartment, Lu Yi was gently washing Mishu's hands. She felt warm inside, realizing how much he cared. It seemed like she was starting to fall for him and stood there frozen. Lu Yi sat her down and dried her hands as well. Mishu then asked if he was this kind to every girl. Immediately regretting the question, she tried to change the subject and leave. But Lu Yi pulled her close and said he wasn't nice to every girl, just the ones he was interested in. Then he walked off, leaving Mishu feeling mortified for even asking. Later, Louis was thinking that Mishu would never figure out his secret identity as Louis. So he uploaded a photo of the view from his apartment window to social media, hoping Mishu would recognize it and connect the dots. Soon enough, Mishu burst into the room, thrilled that Louis had posted a picture of the view outside his apartment. But since it looked identical to the view from where she was staying, she confidently concluded that Louis must be Louis's neighbor, and off she went on yet another wild goose chase. Louis was left silently wondering how her brain functioned. He had basically gift-wrapped the truth for her, and she still didn't get it. A while later, Mishu returned, visibly disappointed. She reported that there was only an old man upstairs and a college student downstairs, and Louis wasn't among them. Louis's face twitched as he realized she still hadn't figured out that he was Louis. Back to her research, Mishu noticed another social media post from Louis, this time showing a statue inside his home. But before she could examine it, Harry called her. He wanted to meet and hand over some important documents. Mishu lied, saying she was staying at her uncle's house for a few days. Harry got curious and asked for the address so he could deliver the documents. Soon after, the doorbell rang. When Louis answered it, Harry looked as if he'd seen a ghost. Louis seemed equally surprised. Michu introduced Louis as her stepmother's cousin brother. Then she whispered to Harry that Louis looked exactly like Tang, and even she had been momentarily confused, but clarified that he wasn't Tang. The two men shook hands. Harry commented that when Mishu said she was with her uncle, he had expected an old man, not someone young. Louis quipped that people were often surprised by his looks, and then cheekily pointed out that Mishu had never mentioned Harry before either. Harry claimed that was because he was closer to Mishu than Louis. Their handshake started resembling a slow-motion wrestling match, which even Mishu noticed. To defuse the situation, she asked Harry for the documents. After receiving them, she offered to take him out for a meal, but Louis immediately objected, saying that when a guest visited for the first time, it was tradition to cook at home. Mishu, stunned, asked if he knew how to cook. Louis boasted that she shouldn't underestimate a multi-talented and handsome uncle like him. Meishu and Harry chat while Louis cooks in the kitchen. However, he kept calling Meishu over and over with random excuses, clearly spying on them and unable to tolerate their bonding. Eventually, Harry got fed up and told Meishu to stay seated. He'd go help Louis himself. He figured it was the only way Louis would calm down. Finally, Louis served the noodles. However, he served Harry a portion fit for a hamster while giving himself and Meishu full bowls. Harry, of course, was left sulking with his sad, half-empty dish of betrayal. Meishu tasted the noodles and ended up loving them so much that she couldn't help but start praising Louis. Meanwhile, Harry, who had absolutely no intention of complimenting Louis and was mentally prepared to roast him, was now stuck. As Meishu noticed Harry's plate, she began sharing her own noodles with him, which absolutely did not sit well with Louis. He couldn't understand how she was worrying about Harry like he was some delicate antique. After dinner, Meishu stepped outside and revealed everything to Harry, that she was looking for Louis and was staying with her Uncle Louis for that very reason. Harry accepted the explanation but pointed out, quite seriously, that since she and Louis weren't blood, living with an unfamiliar man could be dangerous. Meishu, however, defended Louis, saying that even if he behaves weirdly sometimes, he wasn't a bad person. After saying goodbye to Meishu, he made a secret phone call to dig up information on Louis. Back at the house, Meishu returned just as Louis offered her lemon juice. She happily took a sip, only to spit it out immediately because it was absolutely awful. She asked him why he was trying to poison her with something that tasted like it was brewed in a chemistry lab. Louis calmly told her that it was her punishment for getting too close to someone else. Louis stepped very close to her and began looking at her with so much affection that Meishu froze like a poorly programmed robot. Then, Louis kissed her. Meishu was absolutely stunned, mostly because everything happened so fast that she didn't even get a chance to push him away in time. Eventually, she did shove him back, and Louis apologized, saying that whenever she got close to him, he couldn't control himself. As he turned to leave, Meishu admitted that she also had trouble controlling herself around him. Every time he got close, it reminded her of Tang. Hearing that, Louis returned, but this time with a scolding. He told her he didn't like unknown people showing up at the house, and next time she wasn't allowed to invite anyone over without asking him first. If she did, he threatened to kick her out of the house entirely. Meishu was so irritated by this bossy attitude that she immediately transferred half the rent to Louis and declared that the house now belonged to her as well. That meant he couldn't order her around anymore. The two of them got into a heated argument, during which Meishu's eyes suddenly landed on a statue. It was the same statue that Louis had posted on his account. Internally, Louis celebrated that finally she'd noticed a clue. He began to think that surely now she'd realize he was Louis. But instead, Meishu concluded that Louis must just be a fan of Louis and had bought a cheap knockoff version of the same statue. At that, Louis looked like someone who had just failed a multiple-choice test. Frustrated, he walked off, not even staying to hear the rest of what Meishu had to say. The next day, Harry visited Meishu at her office and proposed that he was organizing a huge party with all the top industry leaders, including an invitation for Louis himself. He told Meishu she could try to find him there. Meishu expressed concern, saying Louis might not show up because he never revealed his face. Suddenly, she had a brilliant idea. They could add masks to the party dress code. That way, Louis might feel comfortable attending. Harry loved the idea and gave his approval. Now Meishu is trying on different dresses and deciding what to wear to the party. She asked Louis for his opinion on one of the dresses. Though she looked lovely to him, the dress was quite revealing, so he asked what exactly she was trying to showcase. Meishu, annoyed, went to change. Meishu returned in another outfit, but Louis criticized that one too, saying that he wouldn't like people staring at her that way. Meishu went to change again. When she came back in a third dress, Louis couldn't stop staring. She looked stunning. However, she couldn't zip up the back, so Louis helped her. The moment he touched her, Meishu recalled Tang again and froze on the spot. Laughing, Louis teased her, asking if she liked being touched by him, and offered to give her the same feeling again. But Meishu didn't respond and hurriedly left the room. Then came a dream sequence. Meishu was dreaming of a place she loved, and suddenly Louis appeared and leaned in to kiss her. Though she initially stopped him, saying it wasn't right, she soon found herself unable to resist. Clearly she was falling for him, and the two ended up kissing for quite some time. But just then, Michu woke up, furious that she couldn't even stop herself from falling for him in her dreams. Seriously, even her subconscious had no self-control. Finally, it was the day of the party. Michu got ready and was about to apply lipstick when Harry offered to help. He gently applied it for her, revealing through his actions that he too had feelings for her. At the party, Michu eagerly waited for Louis. Louis entered the venue wearing a black suit and a black mask, showing his invitation at the gate. Michu's assistant informed her that Louis had arrived, wearing just that. Michu began looking for him. Meanwhile, Rose also arrived and questioned Louis' presence, reminding him that it wasn't a good idea for him to be there. Louis explained that Michu still hadn't realized that he was Louis, and that's why he had to come. Harry overheard the entire conversation and figured out the truth. Louis was Louis. But he couldn't understand why he was keeping it a secret. So Harry called someone and arranged for several lookalikes to show up at the party, hoping to confuse Michu and foil Louis' mission. He declared that he wouldn't let Louis succeed. And it worked. As Michu tried to find Louis, she found herself surrounded by guys who all looked just like him. When she began walking toward Louis Yi, he got excited, thinking she had finally recognized him and that he would get to see her shocked face. But she walked right past him. Louis was left dumbfounded. How could she still not realize it was him? In truth, Meishi thought everyone looked the same and was now completely lost in her search. Meishi decided to play Louis' favorite song and began dancing, fully convinced that doing so would magically summon him. And like clockwork, Louis appeared and started dancing with her. But the moment he showed up, Michu completely forgot about Louis and started missing Tang instead. Apparently, every time Louis got close, he reminded her of Tang so vividly that it tugged at her heartstrings. She even told him, quite emotionally, that he reminded her of someone. She admitted that she didn't want to forget him, yet feared falling for someone else. Louis told her to listen to her heart, but Michu stood firm and said her heart had already been permanently reserved for Tang. She declared she couldn't allow anyone else to take Tang's place just because she felt some attraction. This deeply moved Louis, especially when he noticed she was still wearing the locket that Tang had given her. He started to walk away, overwhelmed. Just then, Harry rushed in, saw Michu's face, and asked if she was all right. She confessed she felt like she had just seen Tang. Hearing this gave Harry mild heartburn, because the last thing he wanted was Tang too making a comeback in Michu's life. The next day, Michu was busy admiring the photo of a handsome influencer. Louis noticed her ogling the screen and sarcastically suggested she might as well climb inside it. He then asked why she was so focused on another guy. Michu explained that she was looking for a new influencer for a business collaboration. Louis, in true insecure fashion, asked what had become of Louis and whether she had stopped looking for him. Michu said if Louis didn't want to be found, she wasn't going to waste time playing detective. Louis suddenly began criticizing the guy in the photo. Michu laughed and asked if he was jealous. Louis scoffed and said he couldn't possibly be jealous. After all, who could compare to his super handsome self? Michu replied that he should quit dreaming because he looked like a dried-up chicken. Louis warned her not to mock him and declared that when someone as hot as him was right in front of her, she didn't need to look elsewhere. Michu glanced around dramatically and asked where the hot guy was, because she certainly couldn't see him. Louis clarified that he was talking about himself, urging her to think about him. Michu burst into laughter and told him to stop fantasizing. She then grew serious and explained that she wasn't joking around. She had invested a lot of money into her business and was now looking for a famous person who could help promote their jewelry brand and boost sales. Louis Yi tried to convince her not to give up on Louis, but Michu asked if he was worried about not being able to meet Louis through her anymore. She firmly said that no matter what happened, she wouldn't listen to anyone now. That night, Louis logged into the Louis account, hoping Michu would finally realize that he was Louis all along. Just then, he heard her screaming from her room. When he checked, he found her in terrible pain, though she was trying to hide it. He declared that he didn't care what she said, he was taking her to a doctor. Michu began applying makeup so no one would see her looking rough. Louis couldn't believe it and asked if she'd lost her mind, thinking about makeup at a time like this. He forcefully dragged her to the hospital. At the hospital, Michu spoke with a nurse. She had piles and didn't want to get surgery. She asked the nurse to just give her medicine, but the nurse insisted surgery was essential and mentioned needing a family member's signature. Michu panicked and begged her not to tell Louis. But of course, Louis walked in and asked where to sign. Mishu blushed and asked if he had heard everything. Lu Yi casually informed her that her voice had probably echoed across the entire hospital floor. Mishu, now peak embarrassment personified, couldn't believe Lu Yi knew about her piles. After the surgery, Mishu told her stepmother Rose about it, but when Lu Yi arrived with fruit, she quickly tried to hide her face and asked what he was doing there. Unfamiliar and old into states, he said he came to check on her and teased her for acting so shy. Rose overheard Lu Yi's voice and realized he was there too, but the call cut off. She snapped and said she wasn't embarrassed, she just wanted to be alone. But while grabbing Lu Yi by the collar, they accidentally ended up too close for comfort. A nurse walked in and, mistaking them for a couple, said that although she respected their romance, they should avoid too much movement while the wound was fresh. Michu quickly clarified that they weren't a couple and that Lu Yi was her uncle. The nurse was shocked to meet such a young-looking uncle and promptly asked for his number. Michu jumped in like a protective lioness and said he had multiple girlfriends, 2 divorces, and was over 50, basically a walking red flag with hair gel. The nurse backed away. Lu Yi, however, was delighted, thinking Mishu was jealous and scared the nurse away. Mishu denied it, but later in the bathroom, she wondered if she really was jealous, and if so, told herself it was wrong. She reminded herself that even though Lu Yi looked like Tang, he wasn't Tang, and she needed to keep her distance. When she came back, Lu Yi warned her not to sit too long. Mishu quickly silenced him and warned that if he told anyone about her surgery, things wouldn't end well. At that moment, Harry arrived and was shocked to see them so close. When he asked what was going on, Mishu pretended she was checking Lu Yi's teeth, even twisting his face dramatically. She claimed something was stuck in his teeth. When Harry asked what had happened to her, Mishu lied that she had just felt dizzy earlier but was now perfectly fine. But Harry didn't like this secrecy and wondered what kind of trust she had with Lu Yi that didn't exist with him. He offered to stay and take care of her, but Mishu said Lu Yi was already there for that. Harry felt even worse. Later, all 3 of them were in an elevator when Mishu started having gas pains in her stomach. She grew anxious as the elevator wasn't even moving and was closed shut. When Lu Yi asked what was wrong, she just begged him to take his hand off her. Lu Yi mentioned that Mishu didn't seem to enjoy Harry's hand. And just when Harry tried to back off and get closer again, a strange sound interrupted everything. Mishu began to feel horribly embarrassed, while Harry and Lu Yi stood there like statues in shock. Up to this point, it had become clear that the sudden fart sound in the elevator had startled everyone uncomfortable. In an attempt to take responsibility, Harry apologized, claiming it was his fault. But then, when the noise happened again, Lu Yi jumped in and took the blame this time. Mishu, however, scolded them both, asking them not to turn this into some bizarre competition. She added that she was already dying of embarrassment and didn't need their help digging a deeper hole. When the elevator doors opened, everyone walked out, except Michu. She clearly told them to stay away, needing space to process her emotional meltdown. Harry asked Lu Yi whether he was catching feelings for Michu. He advised him to at least respect their relationship and reminded him that technically Lu Yi was an uncle to her. Lu Yi replied that it was his personal matter and Harry shouldn't be concerned. Harry snapped back that Mishu was probably only giving him attention because he looked like Tang. The day she got over Tang, Harry said, Lu Yi would vanish from her life faster than socks in a washing machine. The next day, Mishu seemed fine and returned to her company. Her assistant, however, had bad news. Another jewelry company had launched designs identical to theirs. This clearly meant that someone from Mishu's team had stolen and sold the designs. In a hurry, she went to check the CCTV footage but couldn't find anything useful. So she turned to Lu Yi for help, saying that she trusted only him. Lu Yi tried acting all important, saying he didn't have the time to help with her work. Mishu told him to stop overacting and sit down to help her check the footage. Lu Yi then kissed Mishu and agreed to help. The 2 of them spent the night checking footage, and Lu Yi finally noticed that a few minutes were missing from one of the clips, likely the time when the theft had occurred. Mishu focused closely on the same clip. Later, while heading home, Mishu started feeling down and muttered that nothing good was happening in her life. She even wished Tang were still around, saying he would, never let her fall into such a mess. Lu Yi didn't like seeing her upset and gently told her to imagine he was Tang, comforting her instead. He hugged her and encouraged her, saying she had been doing a great job handling the business on her own. He said he was proud of her and reminded that she just needed to stay strong because she was a brave girl. Hearing all this, Michu broke down in tears like a toddler who dropped their ice cream. Emotional, messy, and totally honest. But she eventually calmed down and felt much better. She sincerely thanked Lu Yi. Then, while looking at his shirt, she complimented the unique buttons. Lu Yi proudly shared that they had been handcrafted by a traditional artisan. That's when Meishu remembered that Tang also used to get things made using traditional techniques. A light bulb went off in her head. She thought that adding traditional craftsmanship to her jewelry line could make their brand more unique and famous. She immediately decided to go for it, but first she declared that they needed to find the thief in the company. Just as she cheerfully turned to leave, Lu Yi laughed to himself and remarked how Michi was truly one of a kind. Later that night, Lu Yi was talking to the rival company, the one that had released the stolen designs. Thanks to his high-profile connections in the jewelry world, he managed to dig out the name of the person who had sold them the designs. Same night, a nervous girl sneaks into the office in the dark, trying to confirm whether her name had been revealed. Just then, the lights came on and Michu entered, announcing that the game was over. They knew she was the thief. Wu Yi had told Michu everything he learned from the rival company. The girl began to deny everything, claiming they had no proof. Just then, Harry arrived. He showed a recovered, trimmed clip that clearly showed her stealing the designs. Realizing she was cornered, the girl started begging for forgiveness, but Michu calmly told her that she was fired and that legal action would follow. Well, now Michu thanked Harry for bringing the recovered footage at the right time. Harry responded that it was okay and just his duty, because she always said she trusted only him. This statement didn't sit well with Lu Yi because Michu said the exact same thing to him earlier, that she trusted only him. So when both of them got back home, Michu looked quite happy after the matter was resolved, but Lu Yi had a long face. Michu remarked how solving a mystery took a lot of effort. To this, Lu Yi pointed out that he and Harry had done all the work and questioned what effort she had put in. Michu replied that being a good person made her worthy of receiving everyone's help, and that this was a sign of good leadership. Lu Yi then got close to her and reminded her that she had said she only trusted him. Yet, she had told Harry the same thing. Michu explained that she said that to Harry before Lu Yi even came into the picture, and on that particular day in the office he was the only trustworthy one, so she had said the same thing to him. She told him not to take it personally. To cheer him up, she started offering him chips, but Lu Yi, instead of eating from her hand, eats from his mouth, and warned her that he was forgiving her this time but wouldn't do so the next time. Michu was left stunned by his behavior. Meanwhile, the girl who had committed the theft was now confessing everything to Rose, explaining how their entire plan had failed. Rose started getting really angry because she had been behind it all. The next day, Michu and Lu Yi had gone to see the craftsman, but he refused to collaborate with them outright. He said that many companies like theirs came to him, and he rejected all of them because they only cared about their own benefit and never appreciated his talent. As he was about to shut the door, Michu extended her hand to stop him, and Lu Yi immediately did the same to support her, which led to him getting injured while trying to protect her hand. Later, Michu was applying medicine to his hand, scolding him gently for putting his hand forward and getting hurt. Lu Yi moved closer to her and asked if she was really worried about him. Just then, the craftsman came and told them to leave, since they had applied the medicine and there was no reason for them to stay. Michu pleaded with him to let them stay the night, since it was getting late and they had come from far away. She even asked Lu Yi to act along, and he started pretending his hand was still hurting. He finally agreed and said he would give them a room for the night. Michu asked if they could get 2 rooms instead of just 1. The uncle suspiciously asked if they weren't a couple. If not, he said, they should leave immediately. Both of them then started acting and insisted they were indeed a couple. Michu asked Lu Yi to confirm, and he replied that she was his wife. Later that night, Michu was sitting outside when Lu Yi came to her. He asked what they were going to do now, since the craftsman was not agreeing to anything. Michu assured him not to worry, saying that the uncle had a kind heart and she would definitely convince him somehow. On the bed, Michu firmly told Lu Yi not to cross the line she had drawn. When she tried to sleep, Lu Yi pulled all the blankets to his side, which made Michu furious. She started pulling the blanket back, leading to a childish fight between them. After they finally calmed down, mosquitoes began to trouble Michu. Seeing her uncomfortable, Lu Yi rolled up his sleeves so the mosquitoes would bite him instead. Michu told him sarcastically that his blood wasn't sweet enough for mosquitoes to come to him. Lu Yi got annoyed and said there was no reward for kindness anymore. In return, he flicked Mishu's forehead. Mishu got angry and asked why he did that, and then she began hitting him back. The two of them started play fighting, like kids. In the morning, Lu Yi opened his eyes and saw Mishu sleeping very close to him. He gently kissed her forehead but pretended to be asleep when Mishu woke up. Mishu immediately moved far away after realizing how close they had been. The scene then cut to both of them waiting for the craftsman to come downstairs. When he arrived, he asked why they hadn't left yet. Michu claimed it was about to rain and all roads would be blocked. He pointed out that it wasn't raining and didn't seem like it would, but just then it started raining. This gave them an excuse to stay another day. Later, Michu again requested a collaboration from him. He challenged them to create a ring just like his within a single day. Lu Yi was shocked and wondered how they could do it in one day, especially since they didn't know much about crafting. But Mishu accepted the challenge, saying she would do it. After giving their best, they finally managed to make the ring. But when they showed it to the craftsman in the evening, he said he didn't like it and rejected the collaboration. Mishu insisted that he should at least appreciate their efforts, but the man wasn't ready to listen. This angered Mishu, and she later complained to Lu Yi that the man was very rude and seemed to hate them for no reason. However, she declared she would definitely win him over somehow. Her hair also arrived at the village, and Mishu was overjoyed to see him. Lu Yi asked how Harry even knew they were here. Before Harry could reply, the craftsman explained that Harry was a good person who was contributing a lot to the village's development. Then Harry told Mishu that he had booked 3 rooms at the local guest house, so she no longer needed to stay there. Lu Yi was just about to protest and say Mishu wouldn't go anywhere, but before he could speak, Mishu agreed to go. The next day, Lu Yi stepped out of his room and went to Mishu's room to wish her good morning. But when he knocked and Hari opened the door, he was shocked to see him there and asked what Hari was doing in Mishu's room and whether he had been there the whole night.